Netflix and Prime are both sitting on some seriously underrated thriller and crime movies right now, and some of these titles you might have heard of, but a lot of them I think are genuinely buried. Today, I want to talk about 10 of them. Everything from a courtroom drama that might be the most important film of 2025, to a lottery ticket that turns a convenience store into a full-on hostage situation. I enjoy every single movie on this list, and I think with the right framing, you're gonna want to watch all of them. And like I do with all of my videos, stream availability for every single movie I mention is pinned in the first comment below. Now, let's get into it.
What do we need all this dynamite for anyway? Give me what you need the dynamite for. Just be careful. If all else...
Now, I can understand if Woody Allen isn't everyone's first instinct when they think crime movies, but Small Time Crooks is genuinely one of the funniest films he ever made, and it uses its crime premise in this completely unexpected way that I find really charming. The basic setup is a guy with a plan to rob a bank by renting the storefront next door and tunneling through the wall. It's a classic heist comedy idea, similar to some of the old Italian crime comedies from the 60s. But then, the front operation, a cookie shop, accidentally becomes a massive success, and suddenly these small-time crooks are millionaires, and now the movie completely shifts into something else entirely. What I love about this is how it uses that shift to say something real about money and happiness without ever getting preachy about it. Tracy Ullman is fantastic. Elaine May is a total scene stealer. Every single time she's on screen, she's the funniest person in the room. Hugh Grant shows up and plays exactly what Hugh Grant plays, which works perfectly here. And Allen himself is doing this blue-collar version of his usual character that feels fresh. The dialogue has this malaprop quality, characters confidently saying the wrong word, and it lands every time. It's a movie that's smarter than it looks, and a lot funnier than people give it credit. If you want something light to kick off a movie night before you get into the heavier stuff, Small Time Crooks is exactly that. My next pick is an Australian crime thriller from 2014 that I don't think nearly enough people have seen. It's called Son of a Gun, and it's from director Julius Avery, who's clearly a massive Michael Mann fan, and I mean that as a compliment. This one follows a young guy who ends up in prison, gets drawn into the orbit of a very dangerous man, and finds himself involved in things way above his pay grade, including a helicopter prison break and a gold heist. It moves fast and hits hard, and the action sequences have this tactile, real quality to them that I appreciate. Avery's clearly watched Heat and Thief many times, and the gunfight choreography shows it. Ewan McGregor plays a dangerous mentor figure, and he is genuinely terrifying in this role. The man has one of the most naturally pleasant faces in Hollywood, and the movie uses that against you. His mood swings are unpredictable and scary in exactly the right way. Alicia Vikander has a role that's more layered than it first appears, and the lead, Brenton Thwaites, carries the film well with this reactive, expressive performance that keeps you grounded as everything spirals. I'll say this, some critics felt it was a little light on deeper meaning compared to the Mann films it's clearly inspired by, and that's a fair point. But as a pure crime thriller with real style and serious momentum, Son of a Gun delivers. Worth tracking down. Now this one's a classic. 1990, Abel Ferrara directing. Christopher Walken as a New York drug kingpin who just got out of prison and has a very specific vision for what he wants to do with his criminal empire. The loose concept is almost Robin Hood. This guy wants to use his drug money to fund a hospital for the poor, and Walken plays him with this snake-like charismatic calm that makes you genuinely unsure whether he's a monster or a visionary, or both. And the answer by the end is very clearly both. The plot itself is fragmented. A lot of double crossings, shifting loyalties, allegiances that don't hold, and that's kind of intentional. This isn't a clean crime narrative with a neat through line. It's a mood piece as much as it's a story, and Ferrara leans into that fully. The film is stronger in individual scenes than it is as a whole, and that's a real thing, but some of those individual scenes are just extraordinary. There's a subway scene in this movie that is more memorable than entire films. Walken does something in that scene that is funny and terrifying and completely him in a way that nobody else could pull off. That alone is worth a watch. If you've never seen King of New York and you're a crime movie person, this is a gap in your watch list that you need to close. My next pick is a 2023 Nigerian crime film on Amazon Prime called Gangs of Lagos, and I think it deserves a lot more attention than it got outside of Nigeria. It follows a group of friends growing up in Isale Eko, one of the oldest and most vibrant neighborhoods in Lagos, and it deals with corruption, political thuggery, and the brutal realities of street life in a really direct, unflinching way. The first half of this movie is genuinely gripping. The world building is strong, the atmosphere is electric, and you feel the weight of the environment these characters are trapped in. Now, I'll be honest, the second half loses some steam. The character dynamics between the three leads needed more time to breathe, and there are some action sequences where the filmmaking just doesn't match the ambition. One confrontation near the end relies on green screen work that undercuts the whole grounded Lagos street aesthetic the film spent so long building. That's a real problem. But here's the thing, the ambition is real, the heart is real, and the performances carry it through the weaker stretches. This is a film that's genuinely trying to say something about its world, and you feel that throughout. For a crime film that comes from a still developing Nigerian film industry, taking real swings at international level storytelling, it's impressive. Give it a shot. Now, this one is a Spanish thriller from 2021 that I think is one of the most underrated crime films of the last several years. It's called Outlaws, and it's set in Gerona, Spain in 1978. It's a tribute to the kinky subgenre, these gritty, street-level Spanish crime films from the 70s and 80s that featured real delinquents and depicted the criminal underworld with a raw, unvarnished energy. Outlaws captures that spirit really faithfully while adding modern depth and nuance to the characters. The story follows this quiet, introverted student who falls in with two young criminals one summer and basically transforms, goes from bullied kid to robber. And what makes it compelling is how the film uses that journey to explore class and the justice system, specifically how the same crime gets treated very differently depending on who commits it and where they come from. The film has strong opinions on this, and it doesn't whisper them. The action sequences are spectacular, the stunt work is genuinely impressive, and the three leads have real chemistry. I'll say the opening act is a little slow and the ending is complicated in ways some viewers might find frustrating. But if you're willing to stick with it, this is a really rich, rewarding film. It won 11 awards and got 19 nominations, and I think it absolutely earned them.
$156 million, give me that ticket right now!
My next pick is a tight, nasty little thriller from 2023 called Your Lucky Day, and I say nasty as a compliment. The entire film takes place in a convenience store late at night where a group of strangers watches one man win $156 million on a lottery ticket. And the film asks a very simple question: what happens next? The answer is chaos. Immediate, escalating, dark chaos. What's clever about this is how it makes you complicit in everything that unfolds. All these characters are broke in different ways, all desperate in different ways, and you understand every single bad decision they make because the film takes financial desperation seriously. It's not playing it for laughs. It's saying this is what it actually feels like to watch someone win everything when you have nothing. And that's uncomfortable in a way that feels intentional. There's sharp social commentary embedded in here about wealth inequality, about the lottery as a kind of false promise to working people, and it's delivered through the action rather than through speeches. The twists are genuinely nasty, the pacing is lean, no fat on the film at all, it runs, it burns, and it ends in a way that's satisfying and bleak at the exact same time. This is one I don't see talked about nearly enough, criminally underseen. Real quick, if you're getting value out of this list and you haven't subscribed yet, clicking that button is genuinely one of the best ways to support what I'm doing here, and that helps me keep making these every week. Like the video too if you're enjoying it. Okay, back to the list. Top 4 now, and this is where it gets really good. Now, this 2022 Netflix thriller called I Came By doesn't quite get the credit I think it deserves, and I think part of the reason is that it's trying to do a lot of things at once. It's got shifting perspectives, time jumps, social commentary, genre thrills, and it doesn't always balance all of that perfectly. I'll be upfront about that. But here's what it does really well: the villain. Hugh Bonneville plays a former judge, a man of respect and institutional power, and he is genuinely menacing in this role. There's this specific kind of haughty malevolence he brings to it that gets under your skin. The way the film depicts how power protects itself, how someone in his position can make problems disappear, feels uncomfortably real.
Fight the system, remember?
The setup follows a graffiti artist who targets the homes of the wealthy and powerful, leaving his tag as a statement: He breaks into the wrong house, and what he finds in the basement is where the film locks in. That sequence is tense and genuinely frightening. From there, the perspective shifts in ways that I think are more interesting in concept than in full execution, but the themes land even when the plotting wobbles. It's one of those Netflix films that's a cut above the average. Not perfect, but worth your time, especially if you're interested in stories about power and accountability. Now we're in the top 3, and this is one I come back to regularly because I think it's one of the most underrated thrillers of the entire 90s. It's called A Simple Plan, and it's from director Sam Raimi. Yes, that's Sam Raimi, and it came out in 1998. 3 men find $4 million in cash in a crashed plane in the woods in rural Minnesota, and they make what seems like a simple plan to hide it until spring and split it. That's it, that's the premise. And then the film spends the next 2 hours showing you exactly how and why that unravels. What Raimi does here that I think is masterful is he makes every bad decision feel completely reasonable in the moment. You understand why each character does what they do. You're following the logic in real time. And then you look up and realize how deep they're in, and you can't quite trace back the exact moment it became irreversible. That's a genuinely hard thing to pull off. Bill Paxton is quietly devastating. Billy Bob Thornton received an Oscar nomination for this, and it is one of the most empathetic, heartbreaking performances I've seen. He plays a character who is genuinely inadequate in the world's eyes, and it never feels like a caricature. Bridget Fonda has a speech about money and making ends meet that still hits hard. The Minnesota winter setting is used brilliantly. The snow muffles everything, the cold isolates everyone. Nature itself feels like it's pressing down on these people. If you've never seen A Simple Plan, you've got homework. My next pick is a little lighter than that. 2015. Will Smith, Margot Robbie, con artist, heist, New Orleans, Buenos Aires, very stylish crime. Focus is a heist romance caper that I think works best in its first half and works so well there that the slightly weaker third act doesn't ruin it. Will Smith is in full movie star mode. Loose, charming, funny, completely at ease, and it's the kind of performance that reminds you why he became a star in the first place. And Margot Robbie is excellent here. After The Wolf of Wall Street, this was the movie that established her as a genuine leading lady, and she earns it. The chemistry between them is real and playful and drives the whole film. The New Orleans sequence building around the major football game, running through Bourbon Street, and culminating in a high-stakes gambling confrontation in the Superdome set to the Rolling Stones' Sympathy for the Devil is one of the most fun extended set pieces in recent crime cinema.
All of it. 1.1 million.
Nikki, that is my money too.
It's clever, intense, and funny in exactly the right proportions. Now, the Buenos Aires arc that makes up the final act doesn't quite match that. The twist mechanics feel a little familiar and the energy drops a bit, but honestly, when a movie's first half is that good, I'm willing to forgive the landing. If you want a crime film that's breezy and fun and looks incredible, Focus delivers.
6 million Jews in total were murdered.
The world needs to know what these men did.
And my number 1 pick is the most important film on this list, and I'd argue one of the most important films released in the last few years. It's Nuremberg from 2025, directed by James Vanderbilt. Now, the concept here is fascinating. It centers on the relationship between Hermann Goering, the highest-ranking Nazi on trial at Nuremberg, and the American psychiatrist assigned to evaluate him, Douglas Kelly. Kelly's goal was essentially to dissect evil, to figure out whether the Nazi high command shared some common psychological profile that explained their atrocities. And the film follows what happens when a very smart, very ambitious man sits down repeatedly with a man who is, it turns out, even smarter and significantly more manipulative. Russell Crowe plays Goering, and this is one of the best performances of his career. He plays him with this disarming, regular guy energy, almost charming, which makes the capacity for violence feel like a genuinely shocking revelation every time it surfaces.
What do you want from me?
You, Dr. Kelly, have been brought in to inspect the prisoner's mental health.
And Rami Malek plays Kelly, and this might be his best feature film performance. He's conveying this incredibly layered internal struggle, ambition, ethical compromise, and this slow dawning horror of realizing he may be outmatched by his own subject. The film draws direct parallels to contemporary issues: arbitrary detentions, dehumanization of groups, the enduring appeal of authoritarianism even after the world supposedly learned better. It uses sardonic humor to stay human without ever being disrespectful about its subject matter, in a way that reminded me of how Kubrick handled Dark Material, and it's asking a question that I think is genuinely unsettling. What if the most dangerous people aren't monsters? What if they're just very, very good at making you feel like you're the one in control? That's Nuremberg, and it's my number one. Before you go, the next video is one I think you're really gonna wanna watch. I'm going into HBO Max's library and pulling out 10 dark psychological thrillers that are buried so deep most people either have never heard of or completely forgotten they exist. That video's already up, go watch it right now. And if you got value out of this one, clicking the like button genuinely helps more than you'd think. I'm gonna keep making these as long as y'all keep watching them.